Welcome back to our 32 for 32 NFL preview series. I am Michael Lipinski, joined as always by Brett Halpern. This is the Goal Line Stand, and you have an Eagles fan and a Giants fan talking Cowboys football. So mark this down as like a momentous occasion in the world, and we're going to do it as unbiased as humanly possible.
Yeah, look, particularly in light of everything going on in this world, it's we're just different. We're fans of different teams.
Yeah, and we like to keep it unbiased. So, for those of you who are going to say, "Oh, look at these guys acting like a bunch of jerks," no. I could have put the Dallas sucks chant in here, but I'm not going to do that because we're gonna keep it as real as possible. Let's get to it. Let's get to the Cowboys. And I didn't want to put anything else in here because I thought this picture was fantastic. Coaching changes in 2020. Mike McCarthy, come on down.
Hey, at least he's wearing a suit that fits, unlike some of the more recent New York Giant coaching hires. So I'll give him that. That is a good picture, though.
I was going to put the rest of the staff, Kellen Moore, all those guys, kind of like what we did with the Redskins, and I'm like, no, this just looks. I don't know. I'm going to leave it as.
That's good. I like it.
8-8 a year ago, second place in the NFC East. The Cowboys underperformed. They fire the clapper. They bring in McCarthy. What do you think here?
Look, on one hand, this is a guy who's a Super Bowl winning coach, right? But on the other hand, a lot of people would argue you probably should have won several more. Mike, did you read that Bleacher Report article regarding him and Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, the meltdown of Green Bay. It was bizarre.
It was very bizarre, and I have a hard time letting go of some of the accusations made there. Like he was getting that Mike McCarthy was getting a massage during the team meetings. Again, I don't know how the veracity of those accusations, but I have to say they've affected me.
How did that stuff not come out as it was happening? We live in a social media world.
True.
Anything can happen. And maybe the players don't have their phones in the meetings. At least they shouldn't. I don't think they do. How does this not come out like at any point before that?
Well, I guess think about it from a player's perspective. If you're going to rat out the coach like that, do you think any other team is going to want to pick you up quickly?
Fair point.
So I think just the fear of retribution, so to speak, is something that and retaliation may have just kept that quiet. So personally, I just have a hard time getting past not only that, but some of the other about how stale his offense got and how it just seemed like his coaching got stale. And they just talked about how everyone knew exactly what they were going to run. And I think also from, as you mentioned right from the get-go, we have an Eagles fan and a Giants fan talking about the Cowboys, and we're bringing our own experiences here. So for me, as a Giant fan who had to live through Ben McAdoo constantly being in the same personnel all the time and knowing exactly what they were going to run and knowing that he was, Mike McCarthy's guy. So to me, it almost lends further credence to some of those allegations. You know what I mean?
I'm muted again. Yes. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting. Dallas is a place where, you answer to one guy.
Yeah.
And that's Jerry Jones. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out. It was an interesting hire. Look, as T.O. says, get your popcorn. Could be fun.
Well, so I will say just a few other quick things to wrap up the whole thing with Mike McCarthy. Is he a guy who is worthy of another coaching opportunity
Oh
in this
yeah,
league?
yeah, no
Yes.
doubt,
And
absolutely.
also, I think that a guy who has had a long run, except for Andy Reid, who to his credit had the long run in Philly, then went right to Kansas City. I think sometimes it's good to take a year away
Hmm.
to reassess things. It really helped out Tom Coughlin, right? And I think there's others. And so, I think Mike McCarthy is capable of leading any team, and I'm not even talking about Cowboys here, to the playoffs? Yes. And he clearly has a good relationship with Jerry Jones because you get the sense from Jerry Jones, like he's very excited about
About
having Mike McCarthy
yeah,
there.
yeah,
So he's
absolutely.
definitely, striking the right tunes with
Could,
Leatherface.
it could be the Botox.
It could be. Sorry, Cowboys fans. I mean, look, you guys might love Jerry Jones. And
I
you
would
know
actually
what?
like to know, do they like? I'm not talking to the Cowboys fans that they're from Bucks County or South Jersey. We don't have to get into you guys, but the Texas Cowboy fans that grew up with the Cowboys. What do you feel about Jerry Jones? Is like enough? Because here's a franchise, America's team, that was so good for so long, and then we all know that the last time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl was when a VHS tape existed. You know,
That's true. And also, guys,
I'm
I
just
mean,
stating facts. I'm not taking shots. I'm stating
no,
facts.
no. My only other thing is, and look,
And I know they
guys,
got 4 rings, 5 rings.
and look, I'm not Brad Pitt, but he's kind of creepy looking now with all
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
you know,
Did we ever figure out who the chick was with him on the yacht? Was that his wife?
I don't know. Cowboys fans, please comment below. Who was the woman in the blue dress on Jerry's yacht with him? Was that his wife? If so, please let us know in the comments.
And if so, good for him. Let's move. Let's move on. Acquisitions, opt-outs, departures. A lot going on here. We didn't put Andy Dalton on here. Shame on us. It happens.
Yeah, we didn't do that intentionally. Actually, I think that's a really good acquisition, particularly in light of what's going on with COVID. I still think he could start in this league, and to have him as a backup, I think that's a good acquisition. Blake Bell, decent tight end. Gerald McCoy was an acquisition. I guess it's weird because you can't put the same guy in for acquisition and departure because then you wouldn't know if he's coming or going. But Gerald McCoy was brought in and was thought to be a key contributor. He tore his quad, and per the language of his contract, there was actually one of the specific injuries where if that occurred, he could then be waived. I wouldn't be shocked to see him on the Cowboys next year. Dontari Poe also brought in to help solidify the interior of the defensive line. Aldon Smith, I mean, that's the guy who hasn't played in several seasons. But when his head is right, it was one of the most talented pass rushers in the league. And the reports are that he's been doing very well. So I'm really interested to see how he's going to do. Then the other, I think, noteworthy name there is Greg Zuerlein, who I think is one of the better kickers in this league.
Yeah, agreed. As we, crazy to say that we both are high on a kicker, picking a kicker, but I agree.
Well, look, I would rather acquire a kicker than draft one. So,
Oh,
yeah, to me, it makes sense. So in terms of the departures, I think Randall Cobb, it's not really that much of a miss. He's a guy who is definitely the tail end of his career. He did okay last year for the Cowboys, but I don't think they're going to miss him that much. Malik Collins is decent, but obviously there's a reason that the Cowboys brought in both Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe. I think they wanted to get a little bit more stout up front, something that Malik Collins didn't necessarily offer. Travis Frederick, that's kind of a sad story. I mean, he came down with that autoimmune disorder last year, and I mean, his career is definitely cut short. I think this is a guy who could have been a Hall of Famer had he continued on the course that he was going prior to coming down with that autoimmune disorder. He was one of the best centers in the league. So, that's really a shame. As a lineman myself, I respected his game a lot. Jeff Heath is sort of just an average center. Byron Jones, that's a big one. I don't know if he necessarily was as elite as as some people point him out to be. I think one of the top things with him is his versatility in that he can play both cornerback or safety. But I mean, I think that's the guy you're definitely going to miss though. You wanted him on your team. Robert Quinn, the defensive end, he produced, but I think he's another guy who's sort of the tail end of his career, and I think they're hoping at least that Aldon Smith, this miraculous comeback that he's going to have, he can sort of offset that loss. Xavier Suafilo was a interior offensive line backup. Then obviously the other one there, Jason Witten, future Hall of Famer. I mean, I have to give it to the guy. I mean, he's just incredible, and he was even decent last year when he came back. But he's not what he was.
Horrible in the booth. Horrible in the booth.
He was really big. Cowboys fans, I think you have to agree, he was really not good.
I love Tony. I don't know about you, but I love Tony Romo in the booth.
Tony Romo is the best.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Jason Witten, no.
Coming for a year off, I thought he did okay.
Yeah, he did okay. I think he's, again, at the tail end of his career. They're not going to miss him that much.
No, exactly. Now let's get right into it. Cowboys fans and the draft. I really like it.
Yeah.
I really like what they did here.
Yeah, I think, Mike, if I recall correctly, this is one of the top drafts that I mentioned in our draft recap show. Starting off with the top pick, CeeDee Lamb. I think that really solidifies the wide receiver group. He was my wide receiver 2, and he was drafted as wide receiver 2. Really like him. I think some question, whether he is the fastest, but he's able to separate. He's physical, has great hands. I think he's going to pair excellently with, the wide receiver group that they have now with Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup. It's clear that they have high hopes for him. They gave him number 88, which is obviously an important number in Cowboys lore from, Des Bryant, Michael Irvin. I mean, that's really an important number. Trevon Diggs, I also think, is an excellent pick, which sort of helps offset Byron Jones. And this is a guy whose game is – this is Stephon Diggs' younger brother. This is a kid who his game is still ascending. So I think by year 2 and 3, he's going to get even much better than what he is now. And I don't think he's a liability now. I think he's a good player, but he's really going to be something special. Neville Gallimore, the defensive tackle from Oklahoma, super athletic, came from Canada, actually. Really good player, though. And I think give him like a year to develop, and he's going to be a very good defensive tackle. Reggie Robinson, another cornerback I like from Tulsa. And then in the 4th round, I think you guys, he may not necessarily play right away, but I think you drafted your long-term replacement for Travis Frederick and Tyler Biadasz, another center from Wisconsin. So I thought
that's a nice pick. Yeah. I really like that pick. We talk about it. You're going to pick certain Big Ten programs and you're going to pick linemen. Yeah. That's one of them.
Yeah.
It's going to usually work in your favor.
Yep, absolutely. And then the 5th round pick, Bradley Anae. This is a guy who I think is a little limited physically, but in terms of athleticism, but he is a strong physical football player who just is very productive. And I really like him. I think, again, I think he's a solid backup. And 5th round, I'll take that as a rotational player. And then you guys got Dominic DiNucci's grandson from James Madison. Now Cowboys fans are like, I have no idea who you're talking about.
Did we ever verify that is the case?
I don't think it is. But it's wishful thinking.
Yeah. Dominic DiNucci, great professional wrestling trainer out of the Pittsburgh area.
Yes.
If you want our takes on combat sports, follow us on In the Fight Show, where we also talk UFC, wrestling, all that kind of jazz.
I'm sure you guys are all Von Erich fans.
Yeah, we said we can do a whole show on World Class. It'll be great. It'll be great. The Sportatorium, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely.
Let's get to it. Key questions for the Cowboys in 2020. Is this still the best offensive line in football?
No, it's not. It is a very good line. It is at minimum a top 10 line, probably is still a top 5 offensive line. But I don't think you could say, particularly with the retirement of Travis Frederick, that it is the top line. Also, Joe Looney, who is now the at least the name starter at center, and then you have Tyler Biadasz. I think both of them are going to be good, are good replacements, and I think Tyler Biadasz at some point might even develop into an eventual Pro Bowler, but not right now. And also, I'm not crazy about Connor Williams. I think he is a definitive weak link in that offensive line. Plus, Tyron Smith, as great as he is, you could even debate whether or not he's a Hall of Famer. He's getting older, and he's had several injuries the last few years, which have definitely, taken his game and lowered it a little bit.
Let's move into the next question. So you don't like the line. So is this offense truly elite, as everybody claims? I mean, can you be if you don't have one of the best units?
Well, I think that most people would evaluate an offense based on how many yards gained and points scored.
Sure.
So you don't have to necessarily have the number one offensive line to achieve that. I think it could be a high-powered offense. I think there's a lot of potential there. But again, the word is potential. I don't think it's necessarily slam dunk. CeeDee Lamb has not yet taken one pro snap.
Right.
Hasn't even had a preseason snap. So
right.
let's, he still has to prove it. Michael Gallup is an ascending player, but again, now we're basing that on potential. Amari Cooper is very good. I'll give you that. Ezekiel Elliott, a top. Again, Edwards, top 5 running back.
There's talk of him losing carries. So
if he's losing carries, that means there's other people that are good.
Right. Right. Yeah. Does it create problems? I mean, I'm talking here hypothetical. Tony Pollard is looking a guy that has looked real good, I guess, in this whatever we got going on here. And so
he showed promise last year too. So right. I think there is enough talent in that offense where they could be a top offense, but it's still there's question marks.
Fair enough. Let's talk some defense. How has the front seven improved from a season ago?
I think even now, if Gerald McCoy was healthy, I would say it's a dramatic improvement. But even without him, I think the addition of Don Terry Poe, the drafting of Neville Gallimore, hopefully Tristan Hill can develop a little bit more. He was a 3rd-round pick last year out of UCF. I think the front seven has improved. You still have Tyrone Crawford, who's always like Mr. Reliable. Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting to see if Aldon Smith can come back. But I am bullish on the front seven's capability. The one thing is Sean Lee, again, is hurt.
That's a shame,
always.
Man.
I like the player. Yeah. And I have nothing but respect for him. And the other guy I do worry about is Leighton Vander Esch, another guy who I really admire his game. But when you start talking about neck issues, that's a worry. So if he comes down with another neck issue this year, that's a problem. But I think it has improved.
Let's talk. How much will Dallas miss Byron Jones?
I think given the fact that I believe Chidobe Awuzie is injured, that not long term, but a nagging injury that might it's either him and Jordan Lewis. One of them is hurt, but that injury I think could cause some issues. You're going to have Trevon Diggs, which offsets it a little bit, but I think they're going to miss him. I don't think it is necessarily something where you're like, you don't have Byron Jones anymore. There's no way they're making the playoffs. I don't think it is that cataclysmic.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
You mentioned it already. Aldon Smith potentially returning. What's your thoughts here? I mean, this guy has a long, long rap sheet.
Yeah.
This is a prototypical, if you ask me, kind of Dallas signing.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves a second chance. Do they deserve multiple? I don't know.
Well, I mean, he's definitely done his time. I mean, he's been out of the league now for like 4 years. And look, the other thing I would say is that his infractions, and again, I think anything DUI, you're obviously putting the public at risk, but it's, at least it's not like a domestic violence issue where he was, put his hands on women or children or anything of that nature. So it was mostly just internal. He was inflicting damage to himself, which obviously, I'm glad. Most importantly, I'm glad that he was able to get help. I'm really interested because this guy was so good. I mean, he was just like dominant. And it would almost come off like effortless. Like every game, you'd be like, oh, Alden Smith, 2 sacks, 1.5 sacks, 3 sacks. If he can even come back to 80 to 90% of that guy, that is a problem because DeMarcus Lawrence is a very solid defensive end as well.
Yeah, agreed. I'd agree. On that note, Cowboys fans, join us on Tuesday evening for our big NFL prediction show where we're going to tell you where your Dallas Cowboys are going to slot in the NFC East, the conference, the playoffs maybe. If you're a daily fantasy player, check out our partner Thrive Fantasy. New way to play daily fantasy sports, player props in the NFL, MLB, NBA, PGA, and ESports. Check them out at thrivefantasy.com. The link will be in the notes here. And when you deposit $20 or more, you get a free $20 when you use code SEC247. And they're looking to give out $50K week 1 of the NFL. I'm Mike. That's Brett. We're talking New York Football Giants tomorrow, which I know has got you excited as we close in on the end of our 32 for 32. Throw us a subscribe, a thumbs up, a comment, and we'll see you tomorrow.